Hey guys, and welcome back to a Now for something a little bit different. I hope everybody is doing great out there and enjoying life. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about a film from 2006. It's an interesting little film called Perfume, the story of a murderer. Now, if you guys notice, it's me doing this by myself today. I'm doing a little bit of a solo run. What happens sometimes is John gets busy, or in my case, I've been missing a lot lately because I've been just super busy. So I took a little time off. But when we do these little solo runs, sometimes we also do them. It's kind of like like the bank episodes. That way, down the road for the future, if someone's out or they can't make it, we have these episodes as kind of like little bonus episodes that we throw in for you guys. So today, like I said, I'm going to be talking about a film from 2006 called Perfume, the story of a murderer. This movie is about 2 hours and 27 minutes. It's a very dark tale. It almost reminds me of, I don't know if anybody's ever read when you were younger, or even now, the Grimm's fairy tales, that very, very dark themes. It's a really, really interesting film, and I can't wait to get into it with you guys. I'm not going to get into what I've been watching because I feel like that's more of a fun thing to do when John's here. But when I'm by myself and I'm just doing these solo things, I figured it makes more sense to just get into the meat of the film. So this film was based off a book by a writer named Patrick Süskind. Hopefully, I'm getting that right, Patrick. That last name, I apologize in advance if I'm not. And it was originally published in 1985. And over the years, he's had many people attempt to get the rights to it. And he's always been very, very apprehensive and pretty much flat out turning people down. He's like, yeah, no. And it's understandable. If any of you have seen this film, you'll probably realize that it's an unusual and unique film. And especially if you've read the book. I read the book a while ago, and it is a difficult book to adapt because there are a lot of interesting themes. And I definitely could have seen this adaptation really butchered. Thankfully, that didn't happen, but it could easily have gone that way. So originally, like I said, it was a book in '85, and the film was made into 2006. I'm going to get into our director, Mr. Tom Tykwer. Now, Tom was born in Germany, and he started making films with a Super 8 camera back when he was a kid. And he made his first filter. I can make words, guys, I promise. He made his first feature film debut with a film in 1993 called Deadly Maria. And then he made his international breakthrough. And I think this is the one we all might know of, or probably you guys have at least heard the name if you haven't seen it. And it's called Run Lola Run. This came out in 1998, and it's a really, really good film. Really, really unique. Definitely worth checking out. And this garnered many awards and was the most successful film in Germany that year. So, that's saying a lot. Like I said, he did this, Deadly Maria in 93. I did a film called The Princess and the Warrior in 2000. In 2002, he did a film called Heaven. I had some of his American films. He's done a film like Cloud Atlas, which came out in 2012. He did a film called Hologram for the King, which came out in 2016. And then more recently, he did a film in 2025 called The Light. So that's a little bit of his resume. Obviously, I don't go into everyone's complete and total filmography, guys, because that gets kind of boring, and it gets a little bit lengthy. But he's an interesting filmmaker, and like I said, I really liked Run Lola Run, and I saw The Princess and the Warrior, and I thought that was really good too. Wasn't as crazy about A Hologram for the King, and I haven't seen The Light yet, but I'm curious because I do think he's capable of making good work. And like I said, this particular film we're talking about today is a prime example of that. Next, we go into our writers. So, like I mentioned earlier, it's based off a novel by Mr. Patrick Süskind. He was also one of our screenwriters. We also have a gentleman named Mr. Andrew Birkin. Andrew Birkin has worked on screenplays like The Name of the Rose, Desire in '92, and The Messenger, the story of Joan Arc, which came out in '99. Following him, we have a gentleman named Bernard Eichinger. And Bernard has worked on stuff like The Girl Rosemary in 96, Manta in 91. Um, Not really a big filmography, or at least a lot of stuff that most of us probably wouldn't be familiar with. Moving along, we go into our cinematography, and we have a gentleman named Mr. Frank Grebe. He worked on Deadly Maria in 93 with our director. Also, Run Lola Run. He did a film called Gigantic, which came out in 99. The Princess and the Warrior. Also, a film called Heaven. And he worked on that a Netflix show that a lot of you guys might be familiar with. It's a sci-fi show called Sense8. I know it was a big deal when it came out, I think like 3 or 4 years ago. And I heard many, many good things about it. I have not had the chance to see it. So yeah, he has a nice little filmography, mostly working with our director, but a little side stuff too on his own. When we get into our composers, this is interesting. Our director is actually one of the composers on the film as well. Tom Tykwer was worked as a composer on this film. And then we also have a gentleman named Johnny Klimek. Johnny worked on Run Lola Run. He worked on stuff like 1 Hour Photo, Deadwood, Blood and Chocolate, One Missed Call, Killer Elite, Cloud Atlas, Wolf Creek 2. So he's got a nice little solid filmography with some indie stuff, but also some pretty commercial work as well. And we also have one last composer. We have a gentleman named Reinhold Heel. He's worked on Run Lola Run, 1 Hour Photo, The Cave, Deadwood, the TV show, One Missed Call, and also Killer Elite. So these guys have worked together apparently a little bit. There's a little bit of a crossover thing going on. When we get into our editing department, we have a gentleman named Mr. Alexander Berner. Now, Alexander Berner has worked on the Resident Evil movie that came out in 2002, the original one. He worked on Alien versus Predator in 2004, the film 10,000 BC in 2008, and The Devil and Miss D in 99. Also, Cloud Atlas. So he's worked with our director. The Three Musketeers, the version that came out in 2011. Miss Sloane, which came out in 2016, and The Debt, which came out in 2010. So that brings us, guys, to our cast. And we've got a pretty interesting cast. We have our main character, Mr. Jean-Baptiste Granul, and I'm fucking up the French language because why not, guys? I fuck up the English language, so I gotta fuck up the French language a little bit here. And that's played by the actor, Mr. Ben Whishaw. Now, Ben is one of those guys that has a really interesting career. A lot of you guys might remember him from 2004 Layer Cake. Great little film. But then he pops up in stuff like indie stuff like Bright Star in 2009. He popped up in the Bob Dylan film I'm Not There in 2007. He popped up in the Zero Theorem. That was a Terry Gilliam film that came out in 2013. Paddington 2, Paddington in Peru. And he pops up in stuff like The Lobster. So he seems to have a pretty big filmography with primarily a lot of like little indie things, like things that are like more lesser the studio stuff. Of course, I said Paddington too. So, there is some studio stuff too. He's not a dummy. He knows when to take those studio paychecks. But he seems to gravitate towards these more, I guess, more of the studio indie films, if you will, or just flat out indie films. So I think he has a pretty interesting career. And again, I didn't go into his entire filmography, guys. Next up, we have Dustin Hoffman. So we got an icon here, guys, and he's playing the role of Giuseppe Baldini. And let's face it, we all know Dustin Hoffman, guys. Kramer versus Kramer, Tootsie, Rain Man, Midnight Cowboy. I mean, the guy is an icon. He's been around forever. He's always a pleasure to see him pop up and stuff. I love the guy. And I'm always happy to see him pop up on the big screen. Next up, we have another icon, guys. We have Mr. Alan Rickman, and he's playing Richis, a wealthy aristocrat. And, let's face it, another one, guys. Do I really have to go into Alan Rickman's career? The guy's just amazing. Everything from Die Hard, any role that you can think of that's awesome, Alan Rickman. You know what I mean? And it's another guy, man, I can't get enough of when I see his films. Like he's just an absolute legend. It's been a little while, guys. I'm rusty. I haven't done a recording in a while, so my voice is a little bit shot here. Next, we have Rachel Hurd-Wood, and she is playing Laura, Gurnall's daughter. Basically, she is a really interesting character, and our main character kind of becomes a little obsessed with her. Not to give too much away here, as I give too much away. But yeah, no, and she's great in this film, and she's been in another one that's been in a bunch of stuff that pops up. I wasn't aware of some of the stuff, but like stuff like Dorian Gray in 2009, Solomon Kane in 2009, American Haunting, The First Omen, and a bunch of other stuff. But that's, just a handful of titles that you may recognize her from. The late, great Mr. John Hurt is our narrator of the film. And let's face it, John Hurt, another legend, guys. Stuff like Alien from 79, 1984, The Elephant Man, Snowpiercer, The Oxford Murderers, the original Hellboy movie in 2004. I mean, one of these guys that's just all over the place. And that's pretty much our main cast. I'm not going to get into the entire cast because really there's a lot of people in the cast, and really not everyone's really relevant. Some of these people only show up for a little bit. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to adjust here. Got bad posture. Don't tell anybody. Next, like I said, we'll get into the plot. I'm going to do a script breakdown, get into it, and then I'll tell you what I think about the film and why I think this film is a film that you guys should be watching, and one that's worthy of your time. So the film opens up, and we're introduced to a notorious murderer, Jean-Baptiste Grenouille, our main character, and he's about to be sentenced to the death. He's on the chopping block. We learn the story of his life, and it's told in a big flashback, basically. Cutting forward to this moment every so often, but primarily the film is just one big flashback. We see Jean-Baptiste Grenouille in the earliest of the flashbacks, and he's being born in a French fish market while basically his mom's working in this French fish market, this dirty, filthy fish market, and she's cutting fish's heads, and you can see how dirty this place is, and you can almost smell how the things that are going on in this film. It's very for a visual medium like film, where obviously smell is not something we're privy to. You can imagine it and come as close as possible to what it's like. Because she's sitting there hacking away at this dirty fish, and all of a sudden she feels this kick, and then she realizes that she's about to give birth. And instead of actually, like stopping what she's doing and finding a doctor, or even somewhere a little bit quieter, she literally just drops this kid from her, cuts the umbilical cord, and shoves him underneath the curtain behind her little stall as the kid starts screaming. And basically, the baby's discovered because, let's face it, especially newborns, but babies in general, guys, they tend to make noise. They scream, they cry, they want mom's attention, especially since they were just born. And basically, she's arrested for neglect, and then she's hanged. So that's first introduction to mom. That's the first introduction to the world of Grenouille, and he's sent to an orphanage where he's abused. He grows up detached from society with a supernatural sense of smell. And eventually he grows into a teenager, and he is sold to a tanner, literally like slave, where he becomes an apprentice. And we see this tanner, and basically this guy, treats him like he is a piece of property. One day he makes a delivery to Paris where he takes in all the smells of the city, and he's taken by a particular redhead girl. He's attracted to her, but more than anything, this girl's selling fruit. More than anything, he's not just attracted to her physically, but by her smell. And he follows her, and he actually follows her through his nose. So we start to establish that this guy has this almost supernatural ability to smell. Startled, she goes off. He follows her, and he sneaks up on her, and he covers her mouth. And basically, he suffocates her. And he doesn't really intend to do it. I know that sounds kind of, what do you mean he doesn't intend to do it? But he's realizing that she's crying out, and he just grabs her and covers her mouth so that she doesn't scream out, and so he doesn't get arrested. And in the process of doing that, of course, he suffocates her, and she dies. After he realizes she's dead, he strips her naked and basically smells her all over. And he's becoming upset because what happens is, of course, eventually that sense of smell that makes her unique dissipates, and he's just left with the smell of a dead body. And basically, our character kind of becomes a little bit obsessed at this point with the idea of just trying to recreate her aroma. Um, and we kind of get like this establishment early on that like he is a misfit. Like I said, his mom died. His mom was a piece of shit, but she died. He grew up in an orphanage where things weren't very good, and then he was sold to a tanner where pretty much he's all but a slave. Um, he's a misfit of society. He looks a little bit odd, and he doesn't fit in. He wants to capture the essence of life, and in particular with this girl, he wants to capture the beauty of this girl. So, cut to a few days later, and our main character, Grinnell, I shouldn't say hero, he's not really a hero, guys, but he's the main protagonist. So we'll just call him hero anyway. What the fuck? Why not, right? Makes a delivery to a local perfume shop. And he impresses the owner, Mr. Giuseppe Baldini, played by Mr. Dustin Hoffman, with his ability to create fragrances. He smells these fragrances in these jars and Mr. Baldini's basement where he has his little lab, and he starts, mixing chemicals and coming up with these beautiful smells. And of course, Baldini is amazed by this because he notices that this kid has like some sort of gift, this natural gift, to be able to do this. And he automatically goes, well, how can you do this? And of course, Grinnell can't explain it. He just has this ability. So what happens next is basically he tells him that he'll teach him how to make sense and basically teach him everything he can learn. He teaches, basically, I'm fumbling my words here, guys. As you can tell, it's been a while. I'm rusty here, guys. Work with me. Basically, he tells, Baldini tells Grinnell that, like, hey, listen, I'll teach you everything I know in exchange for working with me. He explains the science to preserving scents to him, and he explains to him that all perfumes are harmonies of 12 scents, and theoretically, there might be even a 13th scent out there. And he said he'll teach him everything he needs to know. And of course, Grinnell is, of course. So he makes a deal with Grinnell was working for the tanner, and he goes to work for Baldini. And we find out Baldini used to be this world-renowned perfumer in Paris. Everybody loved his stuff, but he's kind of basically fallen from grace. He's not the newest, greatest thing. But with Grinnell there, now all of a sudden, he's like a magician. He comes up with hundreds of scents, and he's teaching Grinnell, in the meantime, how to do what he's doing. Basically, over time, Grinnell comes to the conclusion that Baldini's method of distilling the scents, while it's very good, he can't capture the sense of all objects. And Baldini informs him that, like, hey, there's more than one different method to distill the scent from something, And he informs him of another method used in the city of Grasse and gives him journeyman papers so he can go there and learn. In exchange, Grinnell makes a deal to basically give him the recipe for over 100 new different perfumes. So Baldini's like, sure, hey, that sounds like a good deal. You give me 100 different perfumes, I'll be sitting pretty for a long time, basically. Just as they make this exchange, Grinnell makes his way from Baldini. And he, of course, kicks in. Because what happens, guys, Baldini dies in a very freak accident. Literally, it's a freak accident, guys. He's living on an apartment complex that's, I guess, basically just collapses within from itself and crumbles to the ground, and Baldini and his wife basically both die instantaneously. Now, meanwhile, we cut to our man Grinnell, and on his journey to Grasse, Grinnell decides to exile himself from society. He wants to take a little bit of a break before he heads to Grasse, and he basically takes refuge in a cave. And while there, he comes to discover that he himself lacks any personal scent. And he believes this is why people perceive him as strange, basically, because in his mind, like, if he doesn't have his own distinct scent that makes him unique, like everybody else has their own unique scent, maybe that's the reason why people kind of see him differently. So after a few days of basically just kind of like hanging around in this cave and basically coming to this conclusion, Grinnell heads on to Grasse. When he arrives in Grasse, he catches the scent on a girl named Laurie Riches, and she's a redheaded daughter of the wealthy Anton Riches, who's played by Mr. Alan Rickman. He decides that she will be his 13th scent and the linchpin of his perfect perfume. He basically wants to create his own perfume. He wants to capture the scent of her basically in like a perfume, I guess, if you will. He finds a job where he learns a new method of distilling scents called, and I'm probably getting this word wrong, guys, but I apologize. It's called enflummerage or enfluorage. Yeah, I'm definitely getting that word wrong, guys. And basically, he starts experimenting by killing a young woman and attempting to extract her scent. On this first attempt, he fails. But, try and try again, they say. And he does, guys. He tries it again, this time using a prostitute he murders. And this time he's successful. And basically, if you haven't seen the film, guys, to give you kind of a rough idea, basically it almost is like this gigantic beaker where he puts the body in, and the body soaks in this beaker, this giant, I guess a beaker is the word I'm looking for. Yeah. And basically he manages to drain the scent from this particular woman. After having perfected this method, he goes on a killing spree, basically, and killing several women and basically capturing their scents. Basically, the idea is if he can capture 13 scents, he can make this, super perfume, basically. So he starts, going on a killing spree, dumps their naked corpses around the city, and of course, this just starts causing a panic, basically. And after preserving the first 12 scents, he then proceeds to plan for the grand finale, which of course is Laura, the redhead, the beautiful redhead. At this point, worried about his daughter's safety, Riches flees the city with his daughter, but Grinnell, of course, tracks her scent to a seaside inn because if I haven't emphasized this enough, this guy, Grinnell here, he can literally, he's like a bloodhound to the 1,000th degree, basically. He can literally detect a scent miles and miles away. His sense of smell is just absolutely amazing. So basically, he does catch up to this girl, Laura, and basically he finds them both at an inn. She's asleep, and basically he murders her while her father's asleep, and he captures the last possible scent from her body to make his super formula, basically, if you will. Soldiers shortly thereafter catch up to him and capture Grinnell just moments after he finishes preparing his ultimate perfume. On the day he's about to be executed, he applies the perfume to himself as he's up in what's the word I'm looking for? He's about to get executed. He's at the stand where they execute people, if you will, and everyone's there. And of course, the crowds, they like a good public execution, and they're all like pumped and ready to see this bastard get killed. But he puts on the perfume, and they're all intoxicated by the smell of the perfume. They're all left speechless. I can make words, guys, I promise. They're all left speechless. Grinnell is declared innocent, and the crowd all falls into this massive orgy. Yeah, that's right, guys. We got a massive orgy. Riches approaches him with a massive sword, but he too is overwhelmed by the smell. He embraces Grinnell as his son, bowing before him. And walking out of Grasse with his freedom intact, he returns back to the Parisian fish market where he was born. He pours all the remaining perfume over his head. Overwhelmed by the scent, the nearby crowd devours him. By the next morning, all that is left of him are his clothes and the perfume bottle, out of which one final drop falls. And I guess the idea here is basically just because you've got what you want and you have the ability to basically control people with this perfume. I mean, he could have taken over the world, essentially. I mean, He had a gigantic city full of people collapse into a massive orgy. He had a guy whose daughter he just killed bow down before him and treat him like he was his own son, it's like he was an emperor. But the thing is, what Garnell realizes is that basically you can have all that, but you still aren't happy with yourself. And I think once he realized that, he realized suicide was the answer. Now, this is just my interpretation of the film, um, but I think it's not. I think it's pretty spot on, you know. And I think this film is special for a bunch of different reasons, guys. And I'm going to go into them right now. I think one of the big ones is that it manages to translate the sense of smell to the big screen. And let's face it, guys. When you're talking about a visual medium, obviously dialogue, visual audio, but the one thing we don't normally associate films with are smell. And this film is all about a guy that has an extra sense of smell. And it's not an easy film to pull off. And I think our director, Mr. Tom Tykwer, and our actors, especially Ben Whishaw, managed to really convey that in our story. Like I said earlier, most people consider the novel by Patrick Süskind just a really difficult book to adapt. And I don't think anyone really thought that he was going to be able to adapt it, to be quite frank. So I think that's part of the magic of this, you know, and then part of it, I think what makes it interesting is, you know, you wonder like, from a viewer perspective, like how does our character go from an orphan that led a fucked up life, you know, where he was never showed any real compassion. He was abused. All he saw around him was poverty and debauchery. And how does that form our or inform our behavior? And it does, you know, it affects it. And I think he became so disassociated with the world and the lack of love in the world, really, from his point of view. He was just seeing all this ugliness around him. And then, like, when he smelt that girl, the redhead, Laura, he smelled like something beautiful and unique. And I think, you know, the idea is he just wanted to capture that, you know, because this is something he's never been able to have himself. And like I said earlier, when he was in that cave, he came to the conclusion that he himself doesn't have his own scent. He himself, while he has this extra perceptionary ability to smell things, he doesn't have an ability to love. He doesn't have the ability to love himself or have anything unique about him. This is the one thing that's unique. So I think him capturing these girls, their scent, and making this ultimate perfume, he thought he was going to be able to find some sort of happiness. And he didn't. He became a monster. You know, and it makes sense when you think about it. You know, when you think about like serial killers and people that have been through a lot, you know, you look at their backstory and there's usually something that turns them into what they become. And I think it's a really interesting film for a lot of different reasons. That's a couple of reasons. There's just so many things about this particular film. It's almost, I'm not gonna lie, it's hard for me to put into words, guys. That's my cop out. No, I'm joking. No, but I mean, like, that's a big thing, you know, like the stuff I mentioned. I also think what's interesting is it almost reminds me, if anyone's ever seen any of the Grimm fairy tales, where there's these very, very dark themes. Usually there's a twist at the end, and a lesson. And I think the lesson, if there were to be a lesson with this one, is that, you know, you can't always find happiness, even if you think you found it. It's like in this particular case, I think Garnell was looking for it, and he thought the answer was through capturing the sense of these women into this ultimate perfume. But ultimately, I don't think that was it. And obviously it wasn't, because he got what he wanted. He even got away with murdering people and avoiding public execution. Still not happy. And ultimately, you know, like I said, at the end, he covers himself with perfume and they just tear him apart. And that's how it ends. And, you know, I think these are some of the things to me that I really connected with this film, because it is so different. It is so unique. It's really, like I said, it's really kind of a difficult film to properly summarize. It really is. But I do think it's one that's worth checking out, guys. I think Tom Tykwer, when I think of his films, of the ones I've seen, this and probably Run Lola Run are the two ones that are like the high points for me. And I think this one, you really can't go wrong. And like I said, the book also an excellent book for those that like a good novel. Now you can find this thing for free, guys, on Canopy. Canopy takes about 2 seconds to make an account. Definitely a great streaming service, and it's commercial free, guys. So all good things. So yeah, guys, that wraps up today's episode. And I do apologize, guys. I am a little bit rusty. FYI, like I said, it's been a little while since I've actually recorded anything, especially solo. But even with Mr. Nance, I've been taking a little bit of a break. But I had a little bit of free time. And I think this movie is, like I said, I think it's a really incredible film. So I definitely give it my highest recommendation. And I hope you guys check it out. And let me know what you think, guys. Comment down below and tell us what you think about the film if you have seen it or if you see it after you listen to this. So yeah, that wraps up today's episode, guys. Before I go, I'm going to give a big shout out to some podcasts you guys should be listening to. I would start out with Mr. Troy and Brad with Not a Bomb podcast. Every week they take a look at films that were either commercial or critical failures. So check out Not a Bomb. We have The Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema with Sam and Will. Sam and Will are killing it every week. They bring us something unique. And lately they've been bringing us 2 films, guys, which is great. I love it. Can't get enough. So check out The Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema. We've got Watch Skip Plus with Jose and Mike the Wildebeest. These guys are doing the Lord's work, guys, because what they're doing is they're going to the movies every weekend, and they're checking out what's the good stuff and giving us the lowdown. So check out Mike and Jose with Watch Skip Plus. Of course, we have Caliber 9 from Outer Space with Rob and Joe, and they do it like a little drive-in double feature format. And again, another one like Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema, where they're giving us some unique films that are just completely different, and it's always a pleasant surprise to see what Rob and Joe have for us. So check them out. And then, of course, we have Raiders of the Podcast. Raiders of the Podcast. These guys always kill it, guys. They always kill it, and they're giving us 2 films every week. And then once a month, they do a monthly special where they have 4 films they cover. And again, always a wide variety of films. Which is what's really cool, because you might get a pairing of like Tales from the Hood with something that's completely, totally opposite of that, and I can't think of anything off the top of my head, so I apologize. But you're getting just a wide selection when it comes to the variety of films that they cover. So that's amazing. And then also Mr. Harry Scott Sullivan with Death by DVD. Now, Death by DVD has been around for an eternity. I think Harry is taking just a brief hiatus. But he should be back, I believe, in January, I believe he said he was coming back. So definitely check out his back catalog, because he's got a ton of stuff you guys can check out. So yeah, guys, that's today's episode, and I hope you enjoyed it. And thanks for listening. I hope to see you guys soon.